grandfather I'm Joseph Albert Hauser the third. My grandfather was the first. My dad is my business partner in Persephone. So we do novelty. That's what we're about. It's fresh, novelty, rare stuff we can geek out on, man. Like all of us, you know?
It's a really small space. It's basically your backyard.
Dude, it's like the backyard's probably 0.3 of an acre and the front yard's like 0.1. We only have 0.4 of an acre total. So, I mean, yeah, we're rocking out. We got a 16 by 16 greenhouse for my vegetative and for my micros. That's what the tables are for. And then we have a 20 by 40 light deck greenhouse for the flowering house. So we actually have 1,000, more than our house. And we have more greenhouse space than house space on this property.
Sounds ideal.
Fuck yeah.
You know, Nick and I were talking about, how we make farming cool.
Right.
And I think what you're doing is a really good example of that.
Yeah, man.
You're turning your backyard into, like, I turned my swimming pool into a koi pond.
Yeah. Dude.
That makes it's fun.
So
right?
G.
But you're taking your backyard and making business out of it, but growing the things you want to grow.
Right.
Also understanding, like, this is fun, but you can get the price you want because it's going to be a niche specialty product.
I worked in the tech thing and I did like it and stuff, but dude, I was not happy like I am right now. I mean, just every day being able to wake up and play with plants, talk to my friends about it, basically.
Yeah.
Like literally, I know I'm fielding calls and sometimes, it can get overwhelming and stuff, but ultimately, dude, I'm playing with plants and talking to my homies about it. Like, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. And if we can all find a way to, even if as a hobby, make a small contribution or make a contribution to yourself, not even selling it, but like everybody take up a little hobby of growing some shit, man.
Walking out your back door and you're at work already. The work you want to be at.
Yeah, dude.
And you created that for yourself. You were working a job you didn't want to do anymore, and you decided. Can you talk about that process just a little bit?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was a long process. So like I worked for one company that I was a manager of a computer and cell phone repair store, had some employees, were good friends. It was great, but the owner was shit and went to shit. So I ended up working for a corporate thing, being a tech consultant for Asurion. And I wasn't utilizing my tech skills. I wasn't being challenged. I didn't really like the job, man. I was basically just in an office to some degree or dealing with the public. And I didn't really, not doing the way I thought I would be able to fix things. I'm a fixer, man. I want to do problems. I want to be hands-on. I want to like work, Well, this wasn't work. So I worked there and I plotted my way out. I listened to podcasts. I found how to get the hemp license. I mean, I can tell you, man, I sat there while I was doing my Apple certification training. I had Bootstrap Farmer videos open. I built my greenhouse and shit. Man, it was just a year-long process of planning, ultimately. Implementing took about 6 months for the veggies. And so that was about a year and a half to actually get my hemp license, if not 2 years. And then now it's been about 6 months. So, I mean, this has been like almost a 2.5, 3 years process at this point to get there. And I went through trials and tribulations with my girl being like, yo, you make good money. Like, you are not going to quit your job. Like, but she ultimately has always been my biggest supporter, wanted me to be happy. She just knows what we're taught to, like, her parents and my parents both worked the same jobs their whole lives and retired, It was scary as fuck. I'm a little bit more like I bartended. I jumped around. I always had different jobs. I was trying to find my niche.
No matter what, you could always go back to bartending tomorrow.
Goddamn right. Or go back to fixing phones, which I still do on the sides. The same restaurants I sell greens to and shit, I'll be up there at their bar fixing phones.
Technological advances are providing incredible tools, but what effect is it having on our strength of character, autonomy, and sense of purpose? For some, technology is used to add leverage in starting a business and building the lives we could only once dream of. But for others, technology is used for endless consumption. They are caught in a virtual world, and now we have multiple generations of humans who couldn't change a tire, cook a meal from scratch, or tie a proper knot. But it also seems to be penetrating the human spirit in other ways. The ability to handle adversity, differences of opinion, or viewing ourselves as victims of the past instead of using the power within to forgive, move forward, and triumph. The challenges brought forth by the temporary lack of convenience is what builds strength of character and a rich life experience. And consuming things used to mean you had to work for those things, but this is less and less the case. We've always leveraged convenience as part of tribes and villages, and that local aspect kept us in check. But technology has reached the point where the convenience is now offered outside of our tribes and villages, which means it's outside of our control and in the hands of just a few multinational corporations. So the trade-offs that we're making in this digital age are of a different sort, with different consequences. And we are potentially headed full speed towards total centralization in some concerning ways. Over the course of the last thousands of years, we have gone from a long period of low-tech and high decentralization to high-tech with more centralization. And if history is a guide, when a few institutions become the center of power, they're almost always corrupted to be used against humanity itself. The system crashes because of its own weight and corruption, and then it puts forth friendly-sounding software updates laced with malware that are actually intended to ensure its self-preservation. The disappearing of human self-sufficiency, combined with the increasing reliance on out-of-tribe convenience, begs the question, where does this lead in 5, 10, 20, or 100 years? If you want to know what unchecked centralization looks like over the course of 100 years, just look at our monetary policy and financial system. Starting with the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, which was drafted in secret in Jekyll Island by the top bankers of that time. And that's created a scenario where, to this day, the heirs of those bankers, they continue to write the laws and secure bailouts for themselves when their behavior crashes economies. And through that Federal Reserve, the unlimited spending by our central government has eroded the value of our currency, with unseen consequences just on the horizon given the recent spending of trillions of dollars. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the centralized, big tech version of this? We can already see how they are controlling narratives based on political leanings within the US and outside of it. But just as important, this kind of bias snowballs us into further corporate reliance on our day-to-day lives that will further control the services that we can access and even our physical movements. But here's the thing, we can opt out of all of it. This is essentially the rejection of centralizing influences for the benefit of humanity. It is our individual decisions that will culminate to the future that is created. We just have to understand the programming coming from these institutions, and we have to consider if the source code is to our benefit or theirs. So, in what areas are centralizing convenience technology having their most negative human impacts? Or said another way, in what areas can we leverage technology in a decentralized way to create a resilient, human-focused experience? We're going to look at the intersection of technology and consumption with an approach to living that goes beyond the narratives that limit our options for our path forward. We'll look at how decentralized alternatives to 4 categories lead to a revolution in resilient human living, instead of one controlled by global corporations that delude us into thinking that we need them. And these 4 categories are community, health, entrepreneurship, and food. Not to say that there aren't more, like money and cryptocurrencies, but building skills in these areas are often lacking in school systems, and they aren't pushed forward by the mainstream news, politics, or music, which makes up our culture. But yet these are the backbone to resilient living and a fulfilling human experience. Human-focused technology and money should only serve to enhance our human autonomy. Working towards localized living allows for stronger economies, culture, wellness, and food security, as they are all interconnected when prioritized at the local level. So with that said, we're going to look at how we can use community, health, entrepreneurship, and food to create our own matrix for others to come into. We're going to recalibrate what we've been accepting as normal, realize the power that we have to change it, and then offer practical solutions for us to move forward with. A solution-based approach to reestablish individual community resiliency through an approach that has us regenerating and not extracting, thriving through relationships while finding a profit with purpose amongst our tribes. It's an opportunity to uplift sustainable capitalism at the local level, because giving corrupt institutions more money and attention has the opposite effect of what we want: less resilience, less individual power. Capitalism and ingenuity were the fuel for the technological progress of the 21st century. And with the tools we've created, we, the consumers, through capitalism, get to pick and choose which ones are worth carrying to the next phase. So by recalibrating what's possible for us individually, we can leverage the opportunities that technology has brought us to build something that leaves the old system behind. to create something that has value, profit, and a social impact, turning our technological evolution into a human revolution.
Yes, the systems approach is so big. Yeah,
Right.
it's a big deal. That's what I studied in college too, which is ironic, which information systems. So I kind of had that mindset a little bit to begin with, and then from there, you know, the other reason that I farm, besides loving it and loving talking about it and teaching it and all this stuff, the other big reason is because I believe small farming is a way that we can change our society for the better. Obviously, right now is like a crazy, tumultuous time in America,
Mm-hmm.
and one way I could see us coming together is around food, around farming, around our local community, and small farms are like the best way to do that. Small farming, organic farming, permaculture, it's like the best way to wake people up
Mm-hmm.
to what's going on with health, the pharmaceutical industry, the subsidization of GMOs, and all the influence the government has, all the corruption, all the evil things that are going on because of the government. I think it will wake a lot of people up to that.
Right.
I think that people becoming more self-reliant, responsible, all these traits that Americans used to have that we've kind of lost.
Right.
I'd love to reintroduce those ideas back
Yeah.
to people, and farming has every life lesson you'll ever need to learn.
Yeah. I don't even think you need to get political to say
No,
that,
no.
a localized solution just seems to make a lot of sense because
Yeah.
every area is so different, and you can't have people living in a city making decisions on behalf of people who live in the wilderness dealing
Yes.
with their own issues that they don't understand.
That they don't understand, yeah.
And that problem just seems to permeate in no matter what department or what sector.
Yep.
When you have big centralized systems, and there's always efficiencies there too, and for some things it's probably important, like military and whatnot. But when it comes to food, right?
Yeah.
Man, we've got to be careful
Yeah.
because technology's great. It's 2018, and there's a lot of cool tech that's even helping small farmers. But
big time.
and you don't need to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole to understand that there can be a crisis or a short-term blip where food security is all of a sudden an issue.
Yeah.
So when we talk about having localized systems, I mean, it's most important for food, right?
Yeah. I think it's a great thing to touch on, the food security thing. Yeah. Transportation goes down, our electricity goes down, refrigeration goes down. We got a day or two of grocery store food, and then it's gone, and then it's mayhem. So, yeah, if we could have thousands of farms spaced throughout the city, yeah, that would do a lot to provide food security. And then, one thing that people don't think about a lot is like the nutrient loss. Once a fruit or vegetable is picked, immediately it's losing nutrients.
Yep.
A week later, when you eat that apple, you eat that spinach, it's lost, a certain percentage of those nutrients. So eating the food closest to harvest is a big deal, and that's what another problem local food addresses. It addresses food safety as well. There's less chance of rot or disease outbreak when it's consumed more quickly.
Yeah.
Also, we have better safety practices than large-scale farms. All the E. coli, salmonella outbreaks happen on large-scale farms, not small farms.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just so many reasons to encourage this and promote small farming.
Right. And we're always looking for win-wins when we can.
Yeah.
I think what Nick and I see is this opportunity that not only can we have a more secure food system with local farms being everywhere, and so if let's say there's a drought in California, the whole country's not impacted. And at the same time, distribution channels are easier. The internet's created the ability to reach customers in an instant with a $5 paid ad on Facebook. So the opportunities in business, in farming, but also serving like different areas within farming at the same time, like basically niching down. That's where we see tons of potential. So yeah, you can grow tomatoes yourself, and you can turn that into a value-added product at the same time.
Yeah.
So really controlling that whole supply chain and serving your customers in a very unique way. And when we have local versions of that, and you have your San Diego version, and you have your Los Angeles version, and these little brands get built around something specific, unique, and local, I think that's where we see or want to see the future of farming, and huge loads of potential with that.
Yeah, that's a really cool vision. I like that a lot.
When bees become replaced by drones, do we realize that we're handing our food security off to corporations? Through the media, the seeds are being planted to accept this fate as inevitable and normal. Instead of making tax incentives to create more beekeepers, even for national security, we see massive investments into technologies that replace nature with corporate-owned machines. So suspiciously, there never seems to be solutions proposed that work independently of a corporation being able to profit off of us, or needing to report to a government bureaucracy first. At this point, we're all aware of the revolving door and pay-to-play games that some of these institutions are involved in, which leads to my suspicion as to why small regenerative farmers are not part of the climate change debate. Doesn't it seem obvious that investing a fraction of the trillions of dollars that our government has borrowed, we wouldn't be spending more money investing in a trade that can repair the land, our bodies, our fragile economies, all at the same time? We've spent untold billions on monoculture subsidies. NGOs and foundations have spent billions investing into agriculture research and GMOs. And this network of familiar billionaires and institutions, they hardly ever discuss getting exercise, vitamin D, or eating from small local farms, which are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. But instead, they talk about the need for biometric ID cards, eating insects, lab-grown meat, and the end of animal agriculture, which are all in alignment with their investment portfolios. And this is the critical part that we need to agree on. What we accept will become our reality, and there are people that want us to accept a future that runs through them. Public relations firms, foundations, and NGOs, they reinforce these visions through think tank policy papers and what amounts to a programmatic feedback loop. If this is the only future that we're being presented with by our trusted institutions, then we are likely to accept it as inevitable. And that's the trick. In the narrative of options being presented as worthy, the trick is also in creating fear from germs, from dirty small farms laden with bacteria. If you can control the medium in which stories are told, you control the conscious awareness programming. And we are being presented with the future scenarios inside of systems that have the same people profiting off of us with increased mechanisms of centralized control. Local independent farmers don't pay the proper tolls into the corporate food system, so to them, it's just not an option to push forward. So once we can see through the veil of the narrative, we can move beyond it and shift our focus into practical alternatives at the individual and local level. When we teach humans to fish on their own land, instead of developing narrow skills on corporate-owned machinery, the power dynamic is reversed. If we can recognize the convenience, technology, and safety traps, we can see more clearly the world we are creating with our own actions. The convenience trap is a lowering of the bar, a weakening of autonomy, and an increased dependence and isolation when not done locally as part of a human-to-human exchange network. Strong relationships with local producers are important when times are tough, but they're also fun, educational, expanding, and community building. The technology trap in this context is the increasing inability to fix tools yourself, to be left paralyzed from progress when something breaks. Strong relationships with local engineers, farmers, welders, and builders provide you with a knowledge network that doesn't go away when the power goes out. Being a contributor in one of these fields makes you more needed in your own community, adding social, intellectual, and financial capital to your life. Working in a specialized skill set for a global corporation mostly makes you only useful to them, only for that moment in time. The safety trap comes in many forms, but its most sinister are the barriers to entry lobbied by corporations to keep out competition in the name of safety. This leads to a negative feedback loop of corrupted political corporatism, which leads to further indoctrination of a safety-first mindset in a completely controlled future. But not everyone is buying this mindset and is instead moving forward creating their own replacements in private communities, both physically and digitally. Awakened individuals are creating nodes, and these nodes are forming local networks that become an ecosystem built around local value exchange, minimizing the need on global supply chains and centralization. And throughout this process, building autonomy with select technologies that will serve our best interests going forward. And as we've started to see social media causing societal issues, it's time to take a stock of where we are, time to prune the overgrowth and collect some seeds for next year. By shining the sun through the veil of a blue pill matrix, we can see a green future of personal and community power and freedom. Regular people turning themselves into gardeners, no builders, and action takers in reclaiming humanity for itself. Small farmers are a critical starting point and an easy entry point for anyone on the planet. There is no stronger foundation of a node than a small farm feeding its neighbors, adding resilience and keeping money in the local economy. So what follows is a code for creating a green revolution, and not a fake, corporate-controlled green revolution built on false promises combined with moral grandstanding, but a real revolution that builds a decentralized network of hyperlocal economies, leveraging energy and materials technology with local leadership to create products and systems that can sustainably outlive us.
But this garden has been sitting dormant for about 2 years now. It's never really been productive. When I ran for Miles of Freedom, I think he had a little interest in it. But this is what you have people that have spent $70,000 to $80,000 in, and look at it. And we want to be able to help this garden and help this community center here. This is South Dallas YMCA. We want to be able to give back and help fix some of this by employing and engaging with community. If we can hire some people besides me to come and train the children here or what have you to do actually an expert job to be able to create a sustainable garden right here. Well, it always starts when you don't have a curriculum, when you don't have a curriculum for the people, when you don't have a person with the fortitude to be able to manage the garden, or the facility itself don't have the time as far as to get people out or what have you. But it always stops when, like, if I come in now as a specialist and I train or what have you, and that's all they want, that's all we say we can do. We can train. Y'all can pay us if y'all come up with the monies. I can train people to do what they need to do there, right? But when I leave and we turn it over to them, that's when everything drops off. You have to have somebody that's gonna push and be able to create curriculums and programs and be involved with people, to be able to, get out there and rub elbows with people and call people out from the community to do what they do. Because if you don't do that right there, that people they're gonna lose interest. And you have to have somebody from that community to be involved. But if you turn it over to them, how would you say, too soon? You have to let your stake be known enough in these places like this. If you're not laying there to do a year or two, and it's not even worth messing with. You know what I'm saying? You have to be ready to put in a couple of years with these people. But a lot of places like that, they just don't have the money, or they just don't have the time. They say they don't have the time. And some of them have the money, but they just can't find that certain person to be able to run that facility. You got people who you can pay and they'll show up, but they won't do the work. That's one of the things that I like doing. Consistency is everything with restorative forms. Consistency, we like being consistent with everything. People can come out and they'll have the fortitude and the zeal to stay there 2 or 3 months or what have you. But then as soon as you bag away or you gone and they don't have nobody to step in your spot to bring that out, that's where it stops at. You gotta be able to bring the people out. Whatever shell they're in, whatever they got going, you gotta get in there with them and show them and teach them. But the more they learn, the more interest they have. The more they see the benefits, the more interest they have. The more training they get, the more interest they have. The more incentive you get in, if you hire somebody, the more work they'll put in to bring the people out, like me. I'm not an easy guy as far as giving up. I'm not one of those guys who, it's like, you gotta take me the distance. I'm gonna take the whole mission the distance because that's what I believe in. That's what I'm here for. The challenges is all around here, like you said, the mentality, the theft, the crime, I mean, how would you say, the financial situation, low income, what have you, it's constant here. But it's a battle that, it's a battle that you can't give up on. You can't stop, because it's gonna constantly be there. Thing about it is, the more we do, and the more we can show as far as training and be able to give and be able to do what we do, it don't take a lot for us to be able to do what we do. But we do need money to do what we need to do. And we need the people in place to do what we need to do. It's like with us, our mission is to do what we do. We want to create jobs, we want to create healthy lives, we want to create sustainable jobs, we want to be able to aware the people of what to eat, what not to eat, healthy foods, what not. We want to be able to create a hub as far as agriculture, inside Dallas, in Dallas. And we want to go as far as we can go with it, not just in Dallas, we want to be effective. And that's our mission. And the more people we can get involved, I mean, we feel like we all can bond together and create this big global thing. That's what we want to do. And my mission is every day I hit the ground running on doing what I do.
Communities and tribes used to be responsible to each other in order to survive, supporting one another with food, shelter, and defense. Part of the neighborly and communal mindset has been traded for government programs that support, but don't seem to sustainably uplift and unite communities as well as intended. What we accept as a healthy community has shifted and changed over time. We're not exactly going back to hunter-gatherer societies, but the increased isolation and dependence culture is leading to unintended consequences. The convenience economy has helped erode the normal mediums for building human relationships. At the local butcher, farmer's market, or meeting friends around the town square. Family dynamics have even shifted from a focus on the nuclear family, sometimes with multi-generations in the same household, to isolating apartments that come with enough conveniences to strip the need for strong bonds within one's neighborhood. Add to that, kids aren't taught the most practical skills in the public school system: growing food, cooking, investing, starting a business, understanding the tax code. Weak neighborhood bonds combined with a limited set of practical and interpersonal skills leads to communities that leave everyone feeling isolated and disempowered. The challenge is for local micro-communities to take it upon themselves to lead projects knowing what critical tools are being left out of the equation. These micro-community projects can sprout from anywhere, out of a CrossFit gym, followers of a local brewery, a cycling club, groups already equipped with the tools that help them manifest the micro-community that they're already in. So what are these tools? Sustainable community leadership that has a vision, is accountable, and is born out of the community, not given to it or placed upon it. A mix of elder leadership with the tutoring, mentorship, and guidance that we see from strong tribes you would find at a church, a jiu-jitsu gym, or an entrepreneur's mastermind group. What can a collaborative of veterans offer for a weekend to a halfway house? What about a group from the nursing home transforming itself into a storytelling tribe, telling what life was like in the 30s and the 40s? Bottom line, communities can't be built from the top down, and as we accept top-down solutions in other parts of our lives, community bonds degrade unless the people inside of them hold it together. A community with no culture or personal ties is not a community, it's a mob. And one recommended gathering place for any of these micro-communities to start a project? A community garden. We can get our hands dirty and use the community garden as a tool shed for teaching science, personal responsibility, and so much more. If we plant a seed, we have to apply learning, attention, and care to make sure it grows up to stay strong and productive. The same principles needed for anyone looking to cultivate a rich life experience. So, just as a garden can be used as an education laboratory or to start a business, it can also be used to bring together diverse groups of people. Like a water cooler in the office, a garden provides the common place for a community to form bonds and to sow the seeds that will create the next era of community living.
For me, I wanted to show, I was trying to prove, can you grow food on a property and have all the fertility and everything be self-contained, but basically a closed loop?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
that was kind of my main context
possible?
here. I think it is possible, without a freaking doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind. I'm there right now, and I could push it to that level. I could feed my chickens for free, I believe.
I like how you said you started at permaculture, and look, I love permaculture too,
Yeah.
but I don't always see those people turn that into a thriving business.
No.
Or maybe it just takes too long. I don't know about it.
Yeah.
And so you've sort of, and this is what I love. You've taken the best from permaculture and you've applied it to actually. Be careful with my words. You've applied it to growing a business in a shorter time frame than most permaculture purists would probably agree with.
Because I believe in private property.
Yeah.
Many people in the permaculture world are thinking more socialistically, not business-minded. They think that profit is a bad thing. But what they need to realize is that making a profit for an ethical business is a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I think about ethical businesses, I love Dr. Bronner's soap, which is in San Diego from North County. They're completely fair trade, organic only oils soap. They've been that way for decades. Mm-hmm. The CEO, I forgot what his take-home pay was. He capped himself at $200,000 a year or something for his salary. You know, companies that are giving their people stock options. They're doing this all voluntarily. Like this is like the type of company I'm trying to build.
Conscious capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And look, I agree with that. And that's why we love the permaculture people, because their heart's in the right place.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
We're trying to navigate in a world we actually live in instead of one we want to see.
Yeah.
That we're not going to just make it happen by just saying and just saying it. Like we're boots on the ground, one step at a time, a practical business approach. Mm-hmm. Let people, if they're paying you with their dollars, you're providing value.
Yeah, exactly. So people like to bash capitalism, but like it just means private property and private ownership of labor. That's all it means. It doesn't mean greed. It doesn't mean selfishness. It doesn't mean, these are human attributes we've attached to capitalism, but that's not capitalism.
Right.
America is not a capitalist country. We have a fiat currency that's inflated 7% a year. The whole banking system is centralized. They control the interest rates. Majority of the food industry is subsidized. The pharmaceutical industry is subsidized. Like this is much more closer to a socialistic economy than it is capitalism, in my opinion. We pay property taxes. We don't even own our property.
Yeah.
So to say that it's capitalism, that it's a private property society, isn't really, to me, accurate.
Well,
but
there's just been a lot of rules that have been kind of set up to favor the people who get to make the rules, and but that's okay because we still have a framework we can work within and succeed and thrive in. And I always try to think of it like profit is a reflection of the value you're creating. Yeah. Because if you're having a profit, that means people are coming to you and spending your money. And we mentioned this earlier. People get to vote with their dollar. Every dollar spent is a vote. And farmers shouldn't feel bad about making even lots of money because that money is now going into a place where that's going to create a better future that we want to see, instead of that same money going into Dunkin' Donuts or going into a
farmer has their perspectives right. They're not going to go out and buy a Mercedes-Benz or go buy a vacation home in the Maldives or whatever, some extravagant thing, because most farmers, they're not into making money, right? That's why they farm. They're into the love of their life and that. So
and that's what we were trying to point out before, and we love that, and because it's coming from an awesome place and it's really important. But at the same time, the only way we can actually make an impact in the world through farming is by having it be a successful business. So unless we can get right with that and sort of own that word entrepreneur, I think we're going to be limiting ourselves.
Yeah. What I want to do is, let's change the feeling behind entrepreneur and capitalism. Let's change it to a positive thing.
Yeah.
Like Gary Vaynerchuk's a business guy I really like, and he talks about let's promote empathy. We need empathy and awareness of ourselves and others and how they're feeling, and giving empathy back and forth. That's something we don't do very well or know how to do very well.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been trying to learn more about, and it's so difficult.
And that's, telling your story. You could say empathy, but really you're making a connection. That's what you're trying to get people to understand why you matter and why what you're doing is important.
Mhm.
And the better we can do that, I mean, it's just like, that's why people tell stories over the campfire. Stories are the things that connect at a human level and an emotional level.
Mhm.
And that's something that corporations are always going to have a hard time doing, comparatively speaking. A
Mhm.
human to human interaction is always going to be better than it coming from the face
Yes.
of a name, of a logo.
Yeah,
you know?
without a doubt, right?
So-
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, once again, going back to local is so much better. You're face to face with the person. You know, I'm not, for me to screw somebody over is like, that'd be crazy to do that. But a corporation doing it, they're just hiding behind the mask of the company. They'll screw people over all day long because it's
Yeah.
this big centralized, powerful thing.
Mhm.
So when we go back to being more local, then all of us have more control over the power structures that are kind of controlling things.
Yeah.
It's more direct.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big arguments for it. And I think I was just thinking like a good parallel to transitioning our systems from what we have now to something different that we want, the more egalitarian society, or these things that people want. We can't change. Can we stop all conventional agriculture right now and switch to organic? We can't.
Right.
We can't. It has to be a transition. And I think that's the same thing for business. And we're seeing that now
Mhm.
in our generation. When I talk to people like us that are trying to start businesses, we're into synergistic relationships. Not, competition's good, but we see the more value and say, hey, as two
Yeah.
separate businesses, how can we help each other and we elevate each other
Yeah.
rather than trying to fight each other for the money that's there? Let's create more money for both of us.
Then that mindset is probably one of the number one factors that
Yeah.
separates the people you see in a couple years from now and the ones you don't.
Yep.
And because we read books and biographies and podcasts, and
Mhm.
we know who's done it. We
Yeah.
listen to their stories because they're doing what we're trying to do. Like,
Yeah.
we've learned, we've benefited from certain kinds of information or ways of thinking or philosophies, and we're just trying to get that across
Yeah,
too, because
it's helped
that-
us.
that's how we actually create
Yeah.
the change that we want to see in the world. By
Yeah.
Yes, we could do it ourselves with our own businesses, but if we can help someone else and create a small mindset shift that
Yes.
allows them to amplify what
Yeah.
they're doing,
Yep.
I mean, that's community. That's really amplifying what we're all trying to do.
Absolutely. And that's what I feel like Curtis Stone did for me.
Yep.
Without him infecting me with the same thing, like, then I was like, well, maybe I should make a YouTube channel too. Now, because of him,
Yeah.
he created me. I'm now giving out information. I'm going to create other people. Then
Yep.
they're going to, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
like
it.
the Curtis Stone family tree.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
gotta love it. But
We all have our own influences. Like, I know that permaculture, Sepp Holzer was real
yes.
big. And
Oh my gosh, I love
Paul Wheaton,
Yeah.
Everyone knows him.
Dude.
And yeah, you look at these leaders who were the first ones to put themselves out there on the internet. I mean, for me, like, in aquaponics, I'm always going
Yeah.
to have a certain group of people that put themselves out there and taught me
Yeah.
all about aquaponics. And
Murray
even-
Hallam.
Yeah.
I love Murray.
And those people will go down as legends to some people, really.
Definitely
and
will.
just shape, like, those people have changed my life forever. And
Yeah, big time.
I guess we're just trying to give back in our own way. And,
Yeah.
and it's not about ego. It's not about, we're not doing this for money. It's about, like, just the knowingness that it's helped us.
It's helped us, and I truly believe this is the way we change our society and culture. It's like this type of working together. And a politician will never change a thing for you. I promise you. They will never make your life better. Promise you.
Yeah. And
But
if you're
we
waiting
can.
for them to,
Yeah, don't
know.
wait.
don't wait.
You can do it yourself. You can
Right.
change your life yourself. You and your friends, your family, your community can all raise each other up.
Right.
We can do it together. We are the community. We don't need these other
Any
people.
type of complaining, you have to be really careful of having a victim mentality.
Yeah,
Even if
God.
you feel like you're justified in having that victim mentality, it's really deflating and depressing, and will keep you in that position. And only when you decide to take ownership for everything in your life, everything that happens to you, even, like, forget whether it's wrong or right, or the game, whether you're justified. You just decide to take ownership for everything.
Yep.
It's actually relieving. So
Yeah,
it allows
yeah,
you
yeah,
to take
it
control
is.
of everything.
It really
Like
is.
who you surround yourself with, the information you're listening to, all that stuff.
Yeah, totally agree. And adversity or negative things or disadvantages that you have in your life, ultimately, they can become strengths. And it can give you more strength than somebody who grew up affluent and didn't have a struggle in the world. Like, those people, to me, in my mind, like, those people are screwed. The people who grew up with everything, they're never going to be happy with life, because it's going to be so much harder for them to figure out the things that people who have struggled have figured out about life.
Yeah.
And that it is worth it to work hard. It is worth it to try to achieve something, because when you do achieve it, it's the best feeling in the world.
It seems like some of those people that do make it out of that, they make the effort to push themselves and just to go into places where we all start from, and even like signing up for the military or something like that. It's probably a good, gut check, because we're just a product of our experiences and our reality, and we can't help if we've been coddled. We don't know what the other side is like. We don't know that pain. We don't know that you need pain to get reward and growth,
Mm-hmm.
So
that's pain, failure, these things are good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You don't grow without those things happening to you.
Right.
You can't make your muscles stronger and bigger without damaging them. When you work out, you're damaging the muscle, and then it repairs itself.
Right.
So we have emotional pain happen to us. If we allow that to fester and stay within us, it will continually cause us pain and damage and keep hurting us. If we can heal the emotional pain within us, then for the rest of our life, it's gone, and we have a net benefit that we're going to live better for the rest of our life, and it's something that you can share with another person, help them heal. Yeah. Emotional pain is something that we never talk about in our society, but that's something that that's what we're all actually struggling with.
Yeah, the burdens we carry around hold us back.
That's what's causing all the anger and the hatred and all the stuff you see online. It's hurt people that are hurt inside.
Nutritional values of food are declining, even at the good grocery stores. Nutritional deficiencies lead to immune and hormonal dysfunction, which can lead to mental and behavioral problems. Unlike obesity, this cause is practically invisible to those affected by it. The foundation of resiliency begins with good nutritional and mental well-being. Without that, all other progress at the individual level is very difficult. And furthering this divide is the nature of city versus rural living, and the rich versus the poor in those areas. In rural places, people can't always easily access quality food, so many grow their own on small gardens. Some people call these folks homesteaders, and most of them you'll meet are generally happy and healthy people. The poor rural folks that don't grow their own food are unfortunately a big part of the obesity statistic, as fast food is part of their daily experience, and most convenience foods are processed ones. In urban areas where gardens are more difficult, there's the most reliance on shelf-stable and processed food from global supply chains, which are some of the most nutrient-depleted food found anywhere. If you have money in an urban area, you can find nutritious food. If you don't have money in an urban area, unless you're growing it yourself, you may not have access to it whatsoever. So let's ask ourselves, if the experts were leading us in the right direction, would overall nutritional values be decreasing or increasing? If you had to objectively measure whether a civilization was in progress or decline, what would our nutritional values and obesity rates say? And what are the solutions being proposed to us? Lab-grown meat and processed patties made from soy and a dirty blend of vegetable oils? This doesn't represent progress. Cyborg bees, insects, and lab-grown meat are being promoted positively as the future of food production by the same foundations who write the guidance papers that lawmakers use for creating new policy. And it just so happens that these are all products of mass-scale operations with massive investments behind them. And you don't see these organizations promoting regenerative agriculture in the same way. You don't see these organizations quoting Joel Salatin or Jeff Lawton because self-sufficient people do not fund the foundation, NGO, corporate political game of control over our future. So when someone has so much money that it no longer matters, then what does matter? Power and influence, shaping the world into their vision. And that's exactly what these agendas represent, and they proceed through a mix of deceit, diversion, and distractions, ultimately leading to our cooperation. And as reasonable as it may seem to follow all the studies and research reported on by the mainstream media, we also know how research is funded, corrupted, or buried when it doesn't tell the story it was hoped to. In addition to that, we've begun to learn of the corruption between the FDA, the dairy, the sugar, and meat industries in the past. Even right now in North Carolina, for example, ag laws prevent the filming inside of chicken houses. And the people didn't vote for that, but we still go along with it through the consumption of poultry from factory chicken houses, via the grocery, fast food, and restaurant industries. We wouldn't expect a Roomba to clean the walls, so why would we expect the same mix of influential multinational corporations to save us with their products that are filled with hidden downstream costs? They've even manipulated our legal system to define corporations as persons, but corporations whose profits are the priority of its shareholders, not its community or environment. But it's still we, the people, that fund these corporations through our purchases. So we have to realize, they won't be the ones saving us. We need to save ourselves from them. So consider the world that we create with our purchases. We've been giving them permission to do it by reinforcing it through our actions. While individually, we all want a healthy environment, good corporate governance, and to support our neighbors over a corporation, our collective day-to-day decisions have led to the opposite. Walmart and Amazon dominate the market because they provide the market with the lowest prices and the highest amount of convenience, mixed with corporate corruption, transferring labor costs on the taxpayers. If these hidden costs were borne by the corporations through a carbon tax, through living wages, average humans wouldn't need to be the scapegoat for valuing low prices and convenience before local and environmentally friendly. And we don't need to blame, we just need to recalibrate. We need to update our software to counteract the years of programming by corporate interests. And there's a hierarchy of human priorities that the majority of us live by. Our system is largely a result of these priorities. I've identified and ordered them as follows. Number 1, convenience. How many times have you paid more than $3 for a bottle of water? Number 2, price. Buying all organic or local means a much higher percentage of our budget goes towards food, and so this just means less of other things. Number 3, health benefits. All other things equal, we'll choose the healthier version. Number 4, environmental cost. I'll go out on a limb and say even for many vegans, this priority list holds true. Soy products have been devastating to natural habitats in Central and South America, which is its own inconvenient truth. And we're all guilty of this list, time to time, or all the time, from ignorance, willful or not. We need to be aware of how hiding external costs is being used against us. Without that, we're being dangled cheaper alternatives and paying for them through societal breakdowns in other areas, and being left to blame each other for being the cause. We do need to bear our share of the responsibility for where we are and how we got here, by recognizing where our power lies and actually doing something about it. First, we need to call out the policies that we are accepting as normal, that are misaligned with human resilience. And we need to call out our politicians directly for the world that they are leading us into. It is a divide not between political parties, but being pro-corporate centralized control or decentralized pro-human resilience. And how about corn subsidies and all that it's led to, who it's benefited and who it's hurt? It's clearly not in our long-term interest, but yet the narrative isn't honestly presenting solutions to it in our daily programming. Imagine an equal investment of money and propaganda into regenerative agriculture and what that would look like. Imagine what a world would look like if the small farmer had as many financial and media resources as our nation's largest farmland owner. Imagine what would happen if we stopped subsidizing monoculture farms for small-scale regenerative ones. The food would be more fresh, nutritious, and connected to its community. It would be a natural solution to our health crisis, including the astronomical costs associated with having diabetes in America. Imagine if we didn't need megatons of pesticides dumped on the food that we eat, which also makes its way into our drinking water. This is a possibility using heirloom seeds local to their environment, as opposed to GMO seeds, which are designed to trap us into purchasing GMO seed, fertilizer, and pesticides in perpetuity. Imagine if giant monoculture farms became a mix of small regenerative farms, with abundant species varieties, pollinating flowers, and near closed-loop systems using animal manure as fertilizer, as has been done for thousands of years. The people would benefit, the bees would love it, but the corporate players couldn't monetize it so easily at scale. The way out has been elusive. Demanding transfers from monoculture farms to small ones hasn't been a topic of discussion. I think we need to create a bill here. We need a bill that we can point to. Built like a human resiliency charge to promote human well-being at the fundamental level. A new bill of rights that considers our tech future and the areas where our system has run amok. A real Green New Deal, not one that's a cloak for more government and corporate control. And with a bill that we can point to, we'll be able to see exactly where our leaders stand on human resiliency, whether they are more interested in handouts and dependence or supporting our path to a tech-leveraged independence. When we have something we can point to directly and demand a vote on it, we'll know exactly who we continue to give permission to lead us. The health of our entire system requires an immunity to viruses in the form of its people standing up to its human-created parasites. And instead of an endless series of actions with corporations tinkering with our biology, maybe we should consider getting our hands dirty, doing it the opposite way.
Something I've seen change in the market in the last few years, of course, with Amazon Prime, Amazon buying Whole Foods, Farm Fresh to You, these different food delivery services, more dependence on Amazon and online shopping, like cell phone use.
Right.
It's all about convenience. It's
Right.
all about time saving. So to me, we need to follow that trend, and using an app is probably the best way to do it. It saves the customer time. It saves us time.
So you want
Convenient. It's convenient.
You want to make it convenient, but not necessarily lose the
The
control. Well, the control of the supply chain and distribution.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I know what it's like selling on Amazon, and it's great selling on Amazon because all the customers there. But at the same time, you can't even interact with the customers in lots of ways that you would be able to normally.
Yeah, that's a
And
really
you
good
lose
point.
out on a lot of the opportunity to engage with them. So
Yeah, it's like zero intimacy with the
Right,
customer.
right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, for a lot of small farms, even selling through Amazon Fresh is going to be really convenient. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that an app
Yeah.
like Vendor wouldn't be another great way to go, because if you're able to have customers even come to your farm, you're able to pick up a box or something like that. I mean, that's the way to do it,
Yeah.
because you don't have to. I mean, Amazon takes a nice chunk of change,
Yeah, they will.
and
And it's just very interesting to think about the future and what is going to happen. You know, with the Amazon lockers, to me, that's a very interesting idea.
Yep.
You know,
all right,
grocery stores will go away. Like, you can order your custom locally grown food. They'll pick it up at this locker that's right next to you. I mean, that is going. I see that as kind of the future.
Yeah, and we definitely don't have to succumb and bow to Amazon when it comes to that. We can make
have
our own lockers.
Yeah, we'll make our own lockers. That's what I think we should do.
Everyone seems to have an interesting story about how they got out of the matrix. Mine is a story of frustration leading to entrepreneurship. It seems a lot easier to outsiders, but it took me almost 2 years from the day I decided I was going to leave my day job to the day I actually walked out of the door. And I've come across so many people who have stories similar to mine, and they come from all backgrounds and industries: medical, tech, finance, legal, you name it. For me, growing food was a path out of the world of corporate finance. And from day one, I felt like I didn't belong. And despite my on-paper success of promotions and pay raises, the thought of spending another half-decade in that office felt like a wasted existence. It took me time to figure out what my first step should be, and I had no idea what the process was supposed to look like or what I should actually be doing. Googling a list of career choices seemed like a broad and useless exercise that I had already clearly failed at 10 years ago. This time I had to figure out a path forward that kept me in control, and not an employer. So I started by downloading some of the all-time classics on business and entrepreneurship, and I read these during the workday and then again when I got home. And this is when things began to click for me. It's when I learned that there's no more important asset than one's own mind when developed properly. And I figured if I can learn the frameworks to operate effectively in the world of business and relationships, I knew the resiliency of my mind would be the key to pushing forward. I started poking around the internet to see what was possible in the world of growing food. I had already had a small food plot, so it was obvious interest for me. It didn't take long for me to get sucked down the rabbit holes of permaculture, aquaponics, and no-till farming. And most of you know what I'm talking about. And this world is filled with so many amazing people, doing amazing things and making positive, necessary impacts. But there's also a lot of people who spend too much time talking about a utopia, or pointing fingers and throwing their hands up in resignation. The combination of idealism with the victim mentality is just about the worst way to practically solve problems. Yet it's a trap that many young people fall into. It's a trap that I got myself in before I had the confidence to take action, which is why I can look back and know where they're coming from. In business, acting on idealistic thinking costs you time and money. And I shed my idealism when I decided I'd be leaving my salary job, moving to a new state, knowing nobody and starting over with a blank canvas. If I couldn't start making money off my idealism within a year, I'd be screwed. If I allowed myself to be a victim, I would limit my power. If I allowed myself to be too idealistic, I would be ignoring the realities that exist, and I would pay dearly for them with the ill-designed business model. So while all of these growing methods are great for the planet, thinking I can run a profitable business with them was a huge gamble for someone in my position, quitting a job with boatloads of student debt and not a ton of growing or business experience. So I had to come up with a business framework that would be indestructible in the sense that it had multiple revenue stream potential with multiple ways that I could pivot or bail on the project, all while doing it off my own savings with 1 year's worth of expenses as my piggy bank. The first model that I came up with was to grow plants inside of a hoop house and take it onto a food truck that I built, where I can turn it into salads, soups, smoothies, and stews. This allowed me to hide a lot of the imperfect looking produce as I was learning to grow. From there, I would take it to events, but I would also establish a subscription meal plan. It combined the things I was already interested in, growing plants and meal prep. This framework had the flexibility in surviving in business not just for myself, but could also be applied to solve our food resiliency crisis across the country, and thus I embarked on this multi-year project to share these insights. Through my own business, I would show off how to turn a $2 head of lettuce into a $10 salad, allowing one person to control the supply chain, profit, and the direct relationship with the customer. And this concept could be iterated in an infinite amount of ways, from spirits, medicine, to meal prep, just about anything that humans need at a basic level. And this is a framework that I call Farm Fusion. It's a small farm business framework that takes local food mainstream by doing two critical things. It meets people where they want to be met with products they crave. The middlemen that were required in business are largely no longer needed. What used to take a full-time employee or a face-to-face handshake can now get done with an app. Reaching and managing clients digitally has become accessible and practically a requirement in this era. There are a multitude of ways that you can reach the mass of consumers in a way that leverages technology, in a way that meets their efficiency, convenience, and attention needs, but that also allows you to remain in complete control. And a few examples of this: an online storefront. An online store offers the ultimate convenience to consumers. Setting up a website can be done between meals, and best yet, everyone in your town can visit 24 hours a day. Local delivery. Let's assume that the majority of consumers would rather sleep in and watch Netflix on a Saturday than drive to a farmer's market to come see you. No idealism here, right? As shopping malls die and virtual experiences grow, we need to start going where the mass consumers are, in their homes. An online store with a supporting app that makes coordinating a weekly delivery is a lot more manageable than it sounds. And I'm not assuming that Walmart is just some evil beast that's always going to provide national brands at the cheapest prices. Walmart might be a bit slower to move, but they have already rolled out a grocery delivery service, and they will continue to localize their supply chain efforts. But that said, a massive opportunity awaits us to establish these direct consumer supply chains before companies like Walmart win that relationship. And by approaching this from the perspective that consumers want convenience first, we must provide convenience just as well as anybody else, including Walmart. If we produce better, healthier, and fresher tasting food that involves little or no middlemen, then we can compete better on price too. And it's all possible with apps and good organization. Growers have the first opportunity to service the whole supply chain to end customers. Food starts locally. Keep it local by building a community of farmers, or a community of businesses that supports locally made products. Which brings us to our next example. Consider being a local distributor. Who needs Walmart or Procter & Gamble when a small farmer leads a local grocery service, conveniently and efficiently getting locally made soaps, lotions, teas, and plant-based medicines into the homes of a working family? Who needs chain restaurants when small farmers have the confidence to add a small meal prep kitchen to their operation? Another example, service points. How about looking to start a farm without any of your own land? How about owning a farm without even having to rent land or a building? This is actually possible with the growth of compact indoor growing technologies, and the opportunity to service others' vertical walls, raised beds, and gardens has always been there. But new clients have opened up due to the local food movement, schools, bars, and restaurants. And these establishments and institutions are always looking for new ways to connect with modern consumers too. And many want to do it through unique and fresh food. Another example, gastronomy. Building on the desires of higher-end food culture are the micro distinctions in flavor profiles and pairings of food. Being around farmers who serve the most elite restaurants, creating new and unique palate sensations, only continues to escalate and separate commodity farmers from specialty growers. And if you're watching this, you likely aren't all that interested in being a commodity producer, and I think that's a good thing. With the help from advanced sensors and drones, commodity farming is stepping up its game too, but mostly around consistency, disease resistance, and drought. Commodity farmers are not in the game of close personal relationships with chefs or individual consumers looking for something that no one else has. It has been, and always will be, a race to the bottom on price when it comes to commodity farming. And another example, health, recovery, and performance. The explosion of niche diets has many people optimizing their health in ways never before possible. And what the body needs, nature can provide. And small farmers have the benefit of growing things that can fit within just about any health trend out there. Markets centered around human optimization, maximizing physical and mental performance through optimal eating, are wide open for farmer involvement. CrossFit, intermittent fasting, and the rejuvenated interest in all kinds of superfoods are all examples of people looking to take their well-being to the next level. People pay top dollar for supplements, meal kits, and gym memberships, but often don't even consider local farmers because doing business with them is either inconvenient, uninteresting, or growers aren't marketing to them directly. But by serving these markets, we're putting ourselves in front of a potential client base that can afford the prices that provide for a sustainable and profitable business. And another example, subscriptions. The hardest thing about eating healthy is being able to do it consistently. And there lies a major opportunity in the market to service the busy mom and the health optimization crowd through a subscription service similar to a CSA. A subscription model can be the best friend of a farmer or any business owner. Recurring revenue means everything is paid for upfront, on time, and consistently. Farmers deal with enough variables, and with the consistency of a subscription, it is one of the most underrated sales channels available.
I always have felt like I don't want to work so that I can live the life that I want. I want my life to be I want the work to be my life, which is the work that we're doing here. And I see more potential in making food for people as being more in line with the kind of lifestyle that I want to live.
For 10 years I worked weird jobs and traveled the world, and that was more for fun. But, I just put away a little money here and there. Kate's job as a teacher at international schools, she was able to save a good amount from that. And then part of being open to moving wherever we could afford to buy property, like up in Pennsylvania or the Northeast, we'd never be able to just outright buy 5 acres with our savings. And part of that goes with the name Little by Little. It's like everything we're doing, we're trying to do it without going into debt. We're just moving on to the next thing as we have the money for it or the time to invest in it. So
we really quickly were able to turn a profit because we're doing a very specific thing that meets a very specific need without a lot of waste. Especially the model of the subscription takes a lot of the risk out of it in terms of how much stuff you have to grow. From the farming perspective, we're not thinking that we have to grow in mass quantities. I'm making the menu every week based on what actually grew.
knowing that there's other people, like young, small farmers, basically with the same mindset, doing something a little different, but a lot of overlap. It's neat to have found that community finally after we had been living here.
It never seemed like that crazy of an idea to me, honestly. The idea that you can take a thing that you pick out of the ground and do a few things to it and it's worth 5 or 10 times as much, and including like the labor that went into that is kind of a no-brainer. We're working with people who want to know where their food is coming from. They want to know that the way that they're consuming is consciously reducing waste. So the subscription model, you know, what they're buying into is this system that has meaning beyond just them being able to eat. I think it's more, there's a huge amount of value in that for them, and it also means a lot to us.
I mean, you can call it being an artist or just being a creator. Like, the amount of joy and just fulfillment I get of making, like turning something into something else or making something from nothing. It's never from nothing, but that feeds me in a way that maybe a nap would feed somebody else.
Future generations of farmers will largely be made up of non-farmers. They are folks just like you and I who found themselves building someone else's dream and wanting to do something different. The act of combining farming with other skills from our past lives has allowed us to create something completely different. It moves beyond commodity farming and even just the selling of raw ingredients. And no, there's likely nothing holding you back that one of us didn't have to break through ourselves. Everyone you see bootstrap their business, learning hard lessons along the way. And what didn't kill us made us stronger. And we want the same for you. It took us all a while to figure out what our calling is, and to be self-disciplined, flexible, and adaptable to an ever-changing environment until the world we wanted to create matched our reality. And what's possible for you is only constrained by your imagination, patience, and willingness to take action. I started my first business with savings from my previous job. I went all in on myself, and I've never looked back. In the midst of all the uncertainty about the future, by looking at our past and our most fundamental human principles, hopefully we have given you some perspective that you can carry forward when thinking about how you can make your impact on the world. Elevating hyperlocal living into the mainstream will be a human-powered push, not one coming from our corporate or political leaders. It's time to start taking action individually, building our own nodes, and then forming networks through relationships and value exchange. And when we have alternative systems operating in parallel, massive political action becomes tangible when we cross industries once again to attract more mainstream influences to our human-focused future. If you want to learn more about the farmers you saw in this film, or to explore ideas in creating a hyperlocal food future, we have interviews and courses available at no cost at the Urban Farm Academy.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of things.
We went crazy.
Maybe put a bow tie on this one. Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So if you guys are interested in learning more about small scale, beyond organic, natural farming, then check out my website, naturesalwaysright.com, my YouTube channel, which is Nature's Always Right. I'm also on Instagram. That's where I post like daily updates about what's going on the farm, whatever I'm harvesting. And I'd love to interact with you guys there. I answer all my comments on YouTube, so if you guys have questions about stuff, that's a good place to ask. And I'll see you guys in a future video, I hope.
You've been listening to Bootstrap Farmer Radio. Thanks to Random Rap Music, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Random Brab gave you permission to use his music?
Yeah.
Fuck, dude. You guys know who Random Brab is?
Yes.
Come on! What the fuck?
He was really chill about it too.
Really?
Asked him once.
Dude,
no
that blows my mind.
Anything like that.